If you're ready to bring video content into your firm's marketing plan, and you don't necessarily want to do it yourself, you're starting to look for outside videographers, video production companies, but you're not sure what questions to ask or what stories to tell, well, this week's episode is perfect for you. Episode 6 here, I'm interviewing Brodie Kerst of Brodie Kerst Productions. Stay tuned. Giving architects and landscape architects the tools and strategies to be seen, heard, and valued in the marketplace, and telling the stories of leaders building thriving design firms and attracting their ideal clients. This is From Architecture to PROFITecture. I'm your host, Jay Krakowski. Let's get started. Fellow and future PROFITects, how are you? Welcome to the show. Excited to have you here and very excited to have my first guest of the entire From Architecture to PROFITecture show. Brodie Kerst is an architecture graduate of the School of Architecture and Urban Planning at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and a longtime, as you'll find out, videographer. He has since gone out to begin building a business providing video services for architecture and landscape firms. And I'm very happy to bring him on the program and to answer those questions that you might have when going out to look for a firm, a company, a person that can bring the vision that you have as a designer to life and to the internet. So let's bring him on. Brodie, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I didn't know that was the first one. I feel honored.
You are my first guest. No pressure, no pressure.
Right.
No. But good. Nice to see you again. We became acquainted somewhere on the Instagrams.
Yeah.
I don't know how I found your video work, but it definitely appealed to me. There's some work that you had done with a project in the Chicago area. Mm-hmm. And we got connected that way. So in learning more about what you do, I'm excited to have you here on the show.
Yeah, excited to be here.
So which came first, architecture or video?
I think architecture probably first.
Oh,
my dad was always he's a banker, but growing up we'd always watercolor paint together, bird watch, do gardening, all that stuff, all the creative side of things. And eventually we went to House on the Rock in Taliesin in Spring Green, and that was it. That was like, oh, this is what I want to do. Like, I want to design crazy buildings like this. And so like one thing led to another, and I went to school for architecture.
Nice. So then when did video come into play?
Video actually came into play when I was in seventh grade in 2010. I had got a flip video camera, the one that has the USB stick that flips out. Mm-hmm. And my friend and I, just that entire summer made a YouTube channel, and then filmed a whole bunch of Transformer videos, video game reviews, short little skits, just anything that we could that we thought was interesting, we would shoot it. And then eventually it just came back full circle in college, and I picked it up and started using it to help kind of storytell and reinforce my designs I was doing in the School of Architecture.
So when you say reinforce, were they part of your presentations or part of your crits?
Yeah. So I think, other architects listening to this would understand, going through studio, you have you're given a site and you have to make the project. And most people blow up a Google Maps image and it's super pixelated, and they plot it out and be like, that's where our site is, right over here. And one of my professors was like saw and knew that I like understood and loved doing video. And he was like, well, why don't you just make a video introducing the site instead of having like a site plan? I'm like, well, that's a good idea. So I went out. I had a drone at the time. I had a T3i, and I just captured the sights, the sounds, the people, and just the experience that this place actually was, to help then use that as a platform to then jump off and explain the decisions of like why I designed my building the way I did.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I have to ask, in using a drone then, maybe compared to now, what was that also pixelated, or was it was it usable?
No, it was totally usable. I got the first drone I bought was the Mavic Pro, the first Mavic Pro.
Okay.
So it was instead of instead of using a Google Maps image, I went up super high and took a bunch of like top-down aerial views and stitched together this like super high res Google Map instead of a pixelated one.
Instead of a Google Map. Yeah.
Right.
That's awesome. Good deal. And then, well, I was going to save it for the end, but I'm going to ask now, how did you get to fly a drone through Studio?
In the actual building.
There's one video for everyone's benefit here. There's one video he has online. I flew a drone for 4 years and this is the result. Well, part of that is flying it above the and across the architecture studio.
Yeah, so that we that had come across because I'd started doing video for the School of Architecture, and they knew I had a drone, and they're like, "We'd love to drone shots." And then I think they had saw one video I showed them of me flying like inside like this warehouse or something, and it sparked this guy's idea. He was like, "Could you fly that in studio?" And it would be, and our luckily our studio space is like a two-story, you know,
Yeah.
a two-story space, and so I was like, yeah, I could try that. And so one day we coordinated with the professor of that studio, and we're like, hey, we're gonna come in and fly. Just tell everyone not to look up at the actual drone because it's all they hear is just as it's flying over. But yeah, I took it off and I just slowly went over, and it's like my heart rate was just like 140, about to have a heart attack the whole time. But I did it, and it looks great.
It does. Yeah, it's very cool. It's super telling. I don't want to use the word clutter because being I would never have called my desk clutter. It was the creative madness. But
yeah,
it's really it's a very cool shot to see that many budding architects all in one shot. So
right,
cool. So I had to ask how many waivers did you have to sign or something like that?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Luckily, it didn't crash. We have no injuries so far.
Right. So let's segue into the nuts and bolts and how a working design firm might use drone footage or might use professional video, or someone like you. As they start to go out and find videographers, or you find them, what kind of questions are firms typically asking you?
Price is always the first and the foremost, which is understandable. As someone who started their own business, like that's the first thing when I bring on people is like, how much is it going to cost to bring you on here? But beyond that, they wanna understand my thought process behind like. So they usually come to me with like, this is the building we want to tell the story of. And then from there, that gives me the platform to jump off and be like, okay, so what's the story behind it? What was the process behind it? And then starting to vet out, is this actually the project that we want to story tell? Or is it the flashy project that we want to talk about? And usually I've done like a handful of interviews where it's on one hand, the project looks great and it's amazing, but you start talking to the people that designed it and starting to do these interviews, and they aren't so happy about it. They're like, yeah, we got value engineered, and the only cool thing was the facade we got to design. Everything else was pretty like base level boring. And then you get to the other side of the projects where maybe architecturally and visually it's not that spectacular, but there's such a strong story behind it of, this project, we came in and it was like a low budget. We did everything we could, but it was important that we brought the community into it, and we brought like other people who would be impacted by this building into it and had them be a part of the design process. And now like they have that much more investment in this building. And it's like, so usually those stories that are more about the community and less about the the ego and the design behind it are the stronger ones that I try to like nudge firms to like, let's talk about that story instead of talking about the latest and greatest lead design building that we made.
So it's a little more about the end user and that emotion that
Right.
often plays up the architecture. I should think.
100%. What's actually funny is that I actually went to a talk with a Pixar animator talking about the power of story. And
Hmm.
like when he brought something up and I was able to kind of apply it to architecture of, you know, you always will have a hero of a story. And in most cases, what should be in most cases is the hero isn't the architecture, the hero is the client. And
Right.
the wise man or the wise woman gives the hero some tool to help them on their journey. Like Frodo gets the sword, Luke gets the lightsaber, and so
Hmm.
in this case the tool is the piece of architecture, the tool is the building to help solve the hero's problems.
I like it.
Yeah.
No, I've heard that as well. Yeah, the hero and the guide. You want to be the Yoda
Right.
on the project,
Right.
so to speak. Um, so stemming from that, are most firms coming to you? Are most firms coming to you with a story that they want to tell, or is it
Hmm.
truly collaborative? Collaborative back and forth.
It's I've had people come either with absolute zero idea of what they want to do. They're just like, we like your work, like, what can we do? And then I've had people come in with a very clear idea of like, this is the building we have, this is the story behind it, and this is what we should
Hmm.
do. And then usually, and either way from there, it's always a back and forth. It's always like, tell me a little bit about the project, like, and then I shoot some ideas their way and they shoot ideas back. And it's usually I find the projects that are like have a really strong back and forth are the ones that end up coming out the best.
Hmm. Gotcha. And then thinking about more like firm profile videos, more,
Mhm.
I don't want to say more corporate, but they're almost more corporate in a sense where
Right.
they want to give a succinct picture of who they are
Mhm.
and their entire body of work. I mean, are you able to summarize what the thought process is there, or is that
I
something
get
that you come across?
I think it comes down to audience. I think firms usually when they want to do like an about our firm, understand who we are and our culture, it's more aimed at recruitment. So they want to be
Mm,
able to have a video where if a college graduate or someone who is in the profession now but looking for a new job is able to see, because culture is the biggest thing. I think 80% of firms hire based off of, does this person fit our culture? And I think they
hmm.
want to portray of like, this is who we are. If you're interested in this and this feels like home to you, then you know we want to hire you. And I think that's usually the biggest thing to get across is the culture and the people and the dynamic between from partner to intern, and having that be showcased.
Well, that's interesting that it's almost not an external marketing piece, but an internal piece, as opposed to trying to get clients um,
Right.
by showcasing who they are. Hmm. And then, I guess the other part of the puzzle, and I wonder if you can speak to this, is getting into social media and more quote unquote micro content.
Right.
Is that something that you tend to push firms towards or away from? Something that
Mhm.
you do at all?
Yeah, I'll always push. I think whatever videographer or creative that you work with to make a video, I think it's important for them to understand not only you need to have the 4 to 5 minute, hero piece, but then you
Hmm.
need to be able to take that and cut in, less than 60-second micro pieces of content out of that. So you have 3 to 4 Instagram posts, you have a couple Facebook posts and LinkedIn posts that you can put this out there, because on social media, people's attention span isn't necessarily going to be to sit and watch 5 minutes of this video.
Right.
So it's important for me to, not only go in and be like, okay, we have this long video, but then I also want to be able to I want you guys to be able to leverage this on all your platforms to get the most amount of eyes on it, because you never know. Like one piece that might do really well on Instagram might do terrible on Facebook, and it's just
Right.
putting it all out there and letting the people who watch it really decide.
Hmm. All right. So that said, TikTok for architecture? Does it work?
Oh man, you guys, my hot takes for TikTok with architecture.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, are you seeing that at all? I haven't yet. So
A little bit of it. I've had to dig for it. It's not like on the front page of TikTok, but
it's so short. Yeah.
it's super interesting because I think the length is one thing, but I think it's more so the attitude towards the content is another thing. It's so lighthearted. It's not serious at
Mhm.
all. You're not making a piece that's gonna make someone cry on TikTok. Like it's more so like, Steve the intern like flossing, while everyone else is designing around him. Just like super fun things like that. Um, and I think it's such a point where it's so organic right now. You can just put out whatever and just taste and test what is working, and then just kind of keep iterating on that.
Mhm.
And I've started to do some for myself, and based off of what I've learned on TikTok, I've started to kind of roll that into some of the Instagram videos, and then what I'm learning there, roll into LinkedIn, and it's
Mhm.
like it's interesting. I saw this guy post a video of him just like he had won a big job, and so it's just like him dancing in like the middle of like a public park or something like that, and and he posted it on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is so like serious and almost takes itself too seriously, where it's like a breath of fresh air.
Mhm.
And then you can almost take something that someone makes on LinkedIn and where it's super serious, and then rotate it into TikTok to see how it does. But
Huh.
yeah, I think.
I mean, yeah, I almost wonder if that day to day, even if it's just sketching
Mhm.
a quick blurb of someone sketching could be viable on that kind of platform, and then certainly in Instagram, certainly Instagram stories where you're just
Right.
showing kind of snapshots of the day to day. But that's interesting, and I know that most these what I've seen of your work out there is the longer form, call it
Right.
YouTube and um, YouTube content, and then
Mhm.
breaking out into Instagram. But I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean,
um,
I definitely think it's here, and I think it's here to stay, and I think you know it's like Instagram and Facebook are now like solidified, and I think TikTok is the next step of that. Of if you don't have a
mhm.
TikTok, you're not relevant.
I guess I got to catch up. But um, so actually, that kind of leads into my next um, point, and having different platforms for different reasons and being comfortable on camera.
Mhm.
How do you, or what kind of conversations, or how do you address that with firms and with individuals that may not be comfortable talking like we're talking right now,
Right,
even on a web call here?
right. It's interesting. I think universally, for the most part, no one likes being on camera.
Mm,
And they have when they're told like, hey, you were the designer for this project, we need you to be on camera and talk about it, they're like, no, I don't want to do it, I don't want to be a part of this. And so, but it's like sitting them down, miking them up and everything. And for me, this has been a product of just doing this for so long. I've realized like you just need to have a conversation with them. And I think that's important again for when hiring a videographer is like you need to have at least 10 to 15 minutes of just what did you do this weekend? Oh, you're into fishing. Where'd you go fishing? All this stuff, and just get them used to talking while there's like a giant camera
in the
looking at
room,
them.
yeah.
Right. And then from there you start to roll it in. And the way that I structure out interviews is we knock off the logistical things first. So the things that are less like emotional, like tell me about how you designed this building. Oh, well, we had to put program here, 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 and they just like get them to talk about it in that way. And then at the very end, when they've warmed up, when they're a little more open, then it's you bring out the intangibles of like, tell me what this project means to you. Why is being an architect so important? Why is
Mhm.
thoughtful design important in our line of work? And it's like that's when you really start to get the nuggets of gold where they sometimes they tear up when they're talking about what they do. And it's like
Mhm.
that's those are the pieces that really separate a video apart from the rest.
I would 100% agree. And if you're whether you're watching here with us or listening on the replay, first of all, thank you. for watching and listening. And then second, it's about 5 minutes, but the video on Ping Tom Park, there's the designer actually gets pretty emotional in there about the impact that it's had on the community. It's super powerful, and it's not something that you can get from a quick project brief or a series of images. Really, that's why I find it so powerful. That's why I scream the word video from the hilltops as much as I can. And why I was excited to have you on here. So you mentioned the idea of spending time before the interview, not just during the interview, but what can firms expect relatively in terms of a time investment for creating video?
I think for the most part, it's about 2 to 3 months for when it's everything's said and done. And to, the start of the conversation, figuring out what project do we want to do, how long do we want the video to be, what kind of, videos sometimes do we want to come out of this, to handing over and delivering the final video file. It's about 2 to 3 months. And I think the most time consuming, and will always be the most time consuming, is the interviews, because you need to schedule around people, 2 people's schedules, sometimes maybe even 3 to 4. And that's always the most time consuming thing, is sometimes that'll be, with the Ping Tom Park, there's 4 different interviews in that, and getting them to schedule all on the same day is next to impossible. So sometimes they're 2-3 weeks apart from each other.
Yeah, I could see that. How to get 4 people lined up in a day.
It's hard. It's definitely
a lot
hard.
of times it's hard to schedule a single site meeting. So
right.
No, that certainly makes sense. And then, and then you mentioned deliverables. I assume it's different for every client, whether they want simply long form or shorter content for social. And I wanted to touch on what you do versus potentially what a quote unquote social media manager does. Are you typically contracted on to highlight one project or do a firm profile as opposed to ongoing social content? Would you say there's a differentiation when a firm's looking for a professional to hire? They look for a videographer or they look for a social media manager?
Right. I would definitely say it's 2 different animals. So for me, it's storytelling. I'm usually brought on to figure out, all right, this is the project, this is the story, these are the people that we should highlight in this story, and put it together. And then I think the social media manager is more so building out a library of content throughout all of their projects. So when you go to their Instagram page, you get a taste of, oh, this is some of the new construction they've done, this is some of the renovations that they've done. And it's just kind of, I think, more broad of showcasing everything that we do, as opposed to highlighting just one project.
I see. I mean, that makes sense to me. Just not only in terms of length of content, but then depth of storytelling versus, a little more day-to-day content, or just kind of snapshots that honestly go away in about 60 seconds.
Right. And it's
you're scrolling through a feed. So
yeah. And it's usually it's beneficial to find someone within a firm who is passionate about that, to then let them and giving them the air cover to do that. I think I've worked in a handful of firms, and I've always been gung-ho about, it's let me run your Instagram, let me run your Facebook, let's do this, let's be out there a little bit more. And I think it's just giving them the air cover within limitations to experiment there, and then allow that to grow and flourish in its own way.
Gotcha. Well, this was great. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, being the first guest.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm honored, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, for all you watching and listening out there, BrodieKerst.com and at Brodie Kerst on all the socials, i.e., not Y. You make a point of that in your intro video.
Point distinction.
Right. But the spelling is there. So there you go. Again, Brodie, thank you so much. And we'll talk soon, man.
Awesome. See you there.
Right. And folks, if you are looking for assistance in storytelling, let's say you're ready to go out and find a videographer, a video production company of your own, but you're not sure what stories you want to tell, or you're not sure how to amend your social media profile language, the language on your website. Well, I am offering a free course that starts next week entitled Story Script Shoot. Shoot me a message on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram at Jake Krakowski for access to that. And it will be a 3-part video series, actually, where we'll dive into the values, the beliefs, the inspiration that drive you as a designer, as a design firm owner. And we can start to craft these stories so that you can update your website, so that you can build out social media content, and ultimately so that you can go out and produce videos that tell your story. So looking forward to hearing from you and to seeing you that have registered. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Well, that does it for this episode of From Architecture to PROFITecture. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go ahead and make it a great week. Your success is inevitable. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you stay up to date with future episodes. Connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn at Jake Krakowski. And for show notes and much more, visit PROFITecturebydesign.com/podcast.